Hi, I'm Dartwork, and the subject of today's build is going to be this everyday household cleaning product you see in my hands. Well, sort of.
Hey, what are you doing, you crazy bushy-tailed rodent? Hey!
In today's video, I'll be showing you the first steps it took for me to design and build my own animatronic Spongebob. So to get this design started, I downloaded an image of Spongebob to make myself a thumbnail. This thumbnail would be a guide to the parts I wanted to move and how I would make them move. After I was done with the thumbnail, I had to open up my Sharper 3D app to design a basic boxy shape that is close to Spongebob's upper figure. I designed fittings for where the eyes, arms, nose, and mouth will be, as well as an open top for access to everything inside. As any true SpongeBob fan would notice, he has a very distinct look with lumpy skin and multiple different size holes or pores on his upper body, otherwise known as ostia on real-life sponges. To achieve this look, I had to export the original square I designed in our Shaper 3D program and import the STL file into a different yet similar program called Nomad Sculpt. In this program, I was able to shape out SpongeBob's chin, his cheeks, his lips, and the overall lumps all over his body. So this was the perfect program to give the original square the needed detail to look exactly like SpongeBob's upper body. I also took a second to design SpongeBob's Krusty Krab hat on the left side of the screen if you've been paying attention. So next we're going back to our Shaper 3D, and I'm importing the newly updated SpongeBob file to make a few last changes before we prepare him to print. To get those pores or holes all over his body, I made different size ovals in Shaper 3D and subtracted each one from different spots all over the body, leaving pretty much the look I wanted. I also had time to add a little bit of color. The nose and top piece were fully designed in Shaper 3D, and at this stage we're just about ready to print. To do that, we need to cut this body into 3 pieces, and that brings us to our next program, Mesh Mixer. This Autodesk program is primarily used for working with triangle meshes. For this project, I've used the program to cut SpongeBob's body into 3 separate pieces to fit on my 3D printer. I also had to make male and female fittings, which was a simple task using this program. These male and female fittings are used to later reconnect SpongeBob's body into one whole piece and ensure that everything is exactly in place from when the piece was designed as a whole. So now we're ready to set these pieces up so they can be printed. I'll be printing on the Anycubic Cobra Max today using the slicer Cura. Each piece will be printed at 20% infill with supports using pt1 filament. In this program, we're able to strategically place each of our prints on our 3D printer's hotbed, and also gives you a preview of how each layer will look throughout the printing process. SpongeBob's full upper body put back together will be around 16.5 inches by 15.5 inches, making him almost a perfect square. And that brings us to our next step, the printing process.
One eternity later.
If you made it this far, then we're at the print cleanup process. I'll admit this is probably my least favorite part of making larger 3D prints. And what I mean by that is removing all the supports and being careful not to break the desired part of the print. To remove the supports, I used a chisel and a hammer. I sped up the footage to not bore you with the slow process of me chipping away little by little at the plastic. I removed any support that was loose enough and could be pulled off by my hand before applying the chisel. It's important to make sure all the supports are removed to ensure you have a much easier time sanding the necessary areas of each print. Be extremely careful when using any tools to remove supports, as pieces will fly everywhere as you chip away. This can all be a tiring, repeated process until everything is clean. After all the supports have been removed, each piece must be sanded until the layers are smooth. Believe me, this took a decent amount of elbow grease and time to get everything sanded.
Abrasive side.
After all the layers were sanded down smooth, I'm now applying the filler primer, which is just the first of layers that will be used to conceal the layer lines and fill in cracks or defects in the prints. Once this layer has been sprayed on and then sanded, we are now ready to put some of our pieces together and add some 3M glazing spot putty, which is a red Bondo product typically used on cars. Be sure to wear a mask while applying the Bondo, as well as when sanding, and be in a well ventilated area or outdoors, which I'm unfortunately not in this video. Just like removing the supports, sanding is equally as important because it will determine how well the layers of paint look when it comes to how smooth or how rugged your finished project turns out. I spray multiple layers of the filler primer, sand, and repeat the process to fill any missed small print areas that were missed upon the initial first spray. How many layers you use of the filler primer or the 3M glazing is totally up to you until you reach a smooth consistency with your layers or filler on your print. Keep in mind, at this point all my pieces are dry fitted together. I made it a point to sand each print individually as well as when they were connected together. And now that everything fits and I'm happy with how smooth everything is, we're going to glue all three parts together. Prior to filming this, I already had glued the two upper pieces to each other. Now I'm gluing the top half and the bottom half to each other and making sure that the female and male fittings fit together perfectly. I used about 2 bottles of Gorilla Glue and made sure it filled in all the nooks and crannies and all the female fittings, as well as the outer rim and edges of both prints. And then firmly pressed both parts together, making sure that there was no gaps and each piece was laying completely flat up against each other. To hold them in place as they dried, I used 2 long clamps that I got from the discount Home Depot Harbor Freight.
It's beautiful.
While this was drying, I knew that I wanted to make sure the seams from where the pieces were connected together were covered so they weren't noticeable. To accomplish that, I went ahead and covered the entire body in the Bondo glazing spot putty. In doing so, I made sure to get every crevice and little area that my fingers could reach. This would give me one good final layer that would cover any last blemishes on the body. So of course, after this, I had to resand the entire thing until the layers were even once again, with the seam lines being as unnoticeable as possible. I made sure to get any excess spot putty out of the small crevices and drill out any screw holes that were also filled in by the putty. Finally, after all this, I gave the entire print one more layer of spray-on filler primer. I took the top piece we made as a cover and applied the same process we just went through when it comes to sanding, cleaning, and applying our Bondo and filler primer. Then I 3D printed rectangular supports to screw inside of SpongeBob's body to make a stopping point and support for the cover to sit on. Then I drilled 4 screw holes through the lid that come up from the supports to hold the lid firmly in place, which can then be removed if necessary. With all that done, that's going to be it for today's video. We've successfully built SpongeBob's upper body. Please like, share, and subscribe if you like this video. The next part of this video is already in the works, and if you have any comments or questions about the video or anything I did, please leave them down below. Until then, I'll see you in the next video.
I think it's clean